back at the first 50 episodes of the show. Today's topic is community. How do we build connections in a way that helps people rise above their political, religious, or cultural differences so that our children, regardless of geography, wealth, or background, can grow up in a world that is safe and welcoming and go out into the world unafraid, with a sense of excitement, wonder, and adventure? One of my personal heroes is M. Scott Peck, who wrote The Different Drum, a book that explores how we can be intentional in our efforts to build community. Jessica Carricker, my guest on episode 18 of Seeking Context, explains what she loves about Scott Peck's writing and philosophy. I see a different drum on your bookcase over here, since we're talking about drums. Scott Peck, I think, has probably been a big influence on you. I've heard you talk about him. So I guess tell me about the influence of his writings on your philosophy of life.
No, if I first was blown away by Scott Peck with his first bestseller, A Road Less Traveled, because it's about leading a life of integrity. And he was a Buddhist when he wrote that book, but years later when he wrote A Different Drum, he'd become a Christian. So that underpinning, that integrity, that being responsible for ourselves and accountable for ourselves so that we can lead a life of purpose and make a difference. That's been there all along. But The Different Drum is specifically about building healthy communities. And we use that word constantly, and yet in such shallow ways. Building true community, it doesn't happen all the time. And it takes people really caring to create that. And he's, as a psychiatrist, he studied it for decades of his career. And religion is supposed to give us the aspirations to be our best self, to be, in Christianity, we would call it following the golden rule of looking out for each other. For the Hindus, it would be namaste. I bow to the divine in you. In all the world, I love my poster. Buddha was not a Buddhist. Jesus was not a Christian. Mohammed was not a Muslim. They were teachers who taught love. Love was their religion. And that's what it takes to build healthy community. And just to talk about it in a religion is to say, okay, here's this God, Buddha, Jesus, Mohammed, and we are supposed to follow them, but we've made them a celebrity. And so now we can kind of cut ourselves some slack. We don't really have to live up to that. And besides that, they don't talk about more than the vision in churches. But Scott Peck says, wait, there are some guidelines and principles, and he's careful to say guidelines and principles, not rules and regulations. That's where religions go wrong, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. That's what separates religions from spirituality. You've lost the spirit now. And it's got to be more open than rules and regulations that man can create, and then that creates all the exclusivity, all the exclusion, all the us versus them. And so he's developed with others, with the use of science, these guidelines and principles so that you can build and then maintain healthy immunity.
Did you catch the incredible insight that Jessica shared just then? She's suggesting that society has taken spiritual leaders like Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, who gave us guidelines and principles to follow so that we can lead more meaningful and connected lives on Earth, and turn them into celebrities that we believe in and sometimes worship, but then often fail to follow. And further, she's suggesting that when we focus exclusively on rules and regulations and the exclusionary correctness of my group's understanding of ancient scriptures, Mosaic law, for example, we've lost the spirit. We've lost the whole point of these leaders' ministry. So as Jessica suggests, what Scott Peck developed in The Different Drum and put into practice through community building workshops is a set of guidelines and principles that can help a group rise above the philosophical, religious, and cultural differences of individual members to work together more effectively. As a friend and colleague of Scott Peck at the Foundation for Community Encouragement, Eve Berry recently published her own book, Building True Community, 30 Years Down the Road Less Traveled. In her book, and in our conversation on episode 49 of Seeking Context, Eve explores what she has learned over a lifetime of community-building work and how we can apply the philosophy that Scott Peck championed in our own lives and our own communities to rebuild a broken world. In our interview, I asked Eve to explain what happens in community-building workshops facilitated by the Foundation for Community Encouragement.
So when we do it if we were to do a weekend community building in person, we would go from 9 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, and then with breaks and lunch and stuff. But that's what we would do. There might be a Friday evening session. There might be a third day if the group wants to debrief what happened during the experiential part of it. But typically it's 2 full days. When we do the virtual, there's a little bit shorter sessions. We usually do Friday night for a couple hours. And then I want to say maybe 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon with a couple hour break. So the sessions are broken up a little bit. What happens at the beginning is people show up. There are 2 facilitators that are trained by the Foundation for Community Encouragement and very experienced. And what they do is they describe the simple guidelines that we use with community building. They're not a whole lot. They're pretty simple. And unlike what people often think about going to a workshop or a seminar or a webinar, there's no agenda. There are no presentations. There's no PowerPoints. There's no teaching. It's purely an experiential process where by using the guidelines, the group, whoever that group is, figures out by trial and error mostly, how do we build a sense of community? And by using the guidelines about being present, speaking personally, only speaking when you're moved to speak and not speaking when you're not moved to speak, being inclusive, avoiding exclusivity, some simple guidelines. People figure out how do they do that. And so over the course of 2 days, the group usually goes through pretty predictable stages that actually you see in life all the time. We just don't know we're seeing it. Mm-hmm. Where you start out with kind of being general and polite and specific and surfacey and small talk and
this is pseudo community.
Yeah, we call it pseudo community, right? And then eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, somebody takes issue with something and there's a difference that surfaces. Oh, really? And then that's when we move into what we call chaos. And usually what happens in chaos is when the focus is on you. Justin, you know what? I know it's the holiday time, but you really have to wear a red shirt, and have a poinsettia in the background. That's kind of a jerky thing to do. I'm just playing with you.
Putting the holidays in your face.
Yeah, and so in this, what happens is people get very aware of, hopefully, how judgmental they are and how they're trying to fix other people and teach other people and give advice, none of which works. Mm-hmm. Certainly it doesn't create a sense of community and connection. So during the chaos phase, the focus is really on the other, what the other should be doing. And so we always say to people, what you cannot, and the group also tries to organize its way into community. Well, why don't we break in smaller groups, or why don't we fix the lighting, or why don't we up the temperature, or whatever it is. But you can't organize your way into community. And so what we're trained as facilitators to do is to kind of point the way to the critical piece, which is the passage from chaos into community. And then we call that emptying and emptiness, which then is, okay, what are the barriers that I'm holding that keeps me from connecting and being authentic with you? Mm-hmm. You, Justin, this group. And So instead of focusing on you and the other, I start self-examining. Things come up. I realize that, you never know what you might have to empty.
Right.
You let go of, call it whatever you want. Let go of, empty, release, surrender, die to. And it's pretty extraordinary when people enter into that place. And so often the kinds of things that people empty, some people might call it confess. I don't know. It's reveal, speak to, are things that maybe are from their past. Something had happened that they didn't even realize they were carrying, sorrow or grief or anger. Or it might be, what I realized that 2 hours ago or yesterday when you said something, I was really offended by it, but I didn't say anything. I just kind of avoided you, didn't want to look at you. So it might be something that happens in the group. And that's really some of the most powerful community building, is to build community with the people there sitting in the circle, or in this case, in the virtual squares.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it really has gotten very simple. It really is about people discovering the power of just being authentic and vulnerable, and neither of which society is very supportive of. But it's liberating. One of the people in our group, she said the other night something I actually wrote down, which is being authentic is a superpower.
Instagram doesn't encourage it.
No. I have seen a pretty significant retreat away from community, just overall, with the social media, Facebook. They actually do a study. I'm not sure who does the study, but every decade, and they measure empathy. And I think 18 to 24-year-olds or something like that. And they've been doing it since the 50s. And about 20 years ago, empathy in young people took a significant dive and has stayed there.
Right. And the pandemic, the isolation didn't, in some ways, it made it worse.
So people are kind of desperate to connect, and how do they connect? With TikTok and Facebook posts and selfies, right. And
Well, and I guess I'm curious, when your writing and your experience with both virtual and in-person community building, if I've been to some of these workshops and I've had the experience and I realize I want community in my life, how do people take what they might have learned there, or if they haven't been to a workshop, how can you move towards it in your day-to-day life?
Well, I actually have a chapter in my book that really breaks down what community looks like in day-to-day life at different levels, individually, in your family, in your community, in the workplace. And so I think one of the ways that is really helpful to bring it back is to start noticing the stages. So what stage is my family in? What stage is my organization in? What stage is my community in? So I think let's just start with our country. The last period, whatever the period, however long you want to count that, particularly the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, it's pretty clear how divided the country is, how much conflict there is, how much isolation people have felt. And so I think we've been in a pretty strong period of pretty severe chaos for a while. I think, unfortunately, many businesses, many organizations are in some stage of chronic chaos. I think lots of families are in chaos. We talk about dysfunctional families. well, there's chaos. Call it drama, call it whatever you want, but it's chaos. And so I think that's where I like to start, is with the family and the workplace. We spend 80% of our hours, our working hours in our lifetime at work. And we spend most of the rest of it with our families. So I think that's the place to start. How do I be real? How do I tell my truth in my family?
Okay.
And, I'm very fortunate that I have relationship with my children, my grandchildren, with my ex-husband. That doesn't even feel like I should call it ex-husband. That sounds kind of, I don't know, negative or something. I'm starting to call it my husband. My husband, because, we've been divorced for a long time, but we still love each other. We see each other all the time. We are co-grandparenting. He goes on vacation, so we've been able to get through whenever chaos happened, whatever hurt happened, whatever alienation happened during our chaos, and have been able to, if you will, empty all that. And we have community. And we can sit around the table with my daughter and my son-in-law, my ex, or was, and we could talk about anything. Mm-hmm. Anything. My son lives, farther away. I don't have it, but same way with them. So, and I know that a lot of people don't have that.
One of the things I love about Eve's insights is the way she describes community as something you can realistically achieve within your family or within your workplace if you are intentional about it, even if you don't feel a sense of community in your, community, or certainly at the nation at large. It's something tangible that you can study, learn, and work on this very moment. If you're interested in learning more, check out Peck's book, The Different Drum, and Eve's book, Building True Community, and try to apply the principles in your day-to-day life. I'd like to now share some moments from Seeking Context where my guests modeled behavior that helps build a sense of community within the sphere of influence that they have. Kenesha Grayson was my guest on episode 15. Her consulting business, The Art of Applying, helps non-traditional students navigate the application process to graduate schools. In this moment of light, Kenesha shares a story about how she cares for her team and how she strives to build a sense of community with a remote workforce.
People have one-on-ones so that if they are struggling in their role, or even sometimes struggling in life, because that can affect work, so that their manager can help them navigate that, not like being their life coach, but just sometimes life stuff is going to affect work. Here's a really simple but fun example is I asked one of my full-time people during her one-on-one, I said, what's the most frustrating thing to you right now? And she said, well, it's not something you can help with. It's just so hot in the Philippines right now. And my AC bill is so high, so I barely ever run the AC. And I asked her, how much her AC bill was. And it was like for the company, like, nothing. But for her, it was enough to make her not run her air conditioner. And I said, you know what? Congratulations. The company now pays your air conditioning bill and the bill of all team members in the Philippines. And we call it the Keeping It Cool bonus.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you. And the only requirement is you have to run your air conditioner during work, when you're working. If you want to save money and not run it later, but you have to run it so that you can be nice and cool and comfortable. That's a personal thing, but it was affecting their work.
Yeah.
So,
well, I got to say, your career, your joy that you are spreading is something to celebrate. It's so great to talk to you, and I'm glad you joined for this chat and to catch up.
By listening to her team and seeking context on their working conditions, Kenesha demonstrated one simple way you can build community in your workplace. Jesse Malcolm runs a CrossFit gym in San Diego and was my guest for episode 34. In our interview, Jesse and I discussed what he feels is one critical factor that helped his business survive the pandemic lockdown and then thrived in the year after.
The biggest thing with our coaches is, honestly, it's care. The big thing with the one common fact of all of the one commonality of all of them is that they care. And I know it might sound cliche, but that, like, if you take someone who genuinely cares and cares about people, you can teach them to code. You can teach them the technical side, all of that. They certainly have to have an interest for learning and everything else, and all of our coaches do. But if they don't have that genuine care, if people can't see that coach and be like, that person cares, like they genuinely care about me and what I'm doing in this class, and they're not just, riding the clock until they can work out, or just like, wandering around, whatever, because there are coaches in CrossFit and in other, group fitness industry that's, you kind of need what you pay for. And some of them are just babysitters. They're just kind of there to make sure no one gets hurt. So it's like, do you have a babysitter or do you have a coach? And does that coach care? Because people, we're in a world that's lacks authenticity and, genuine people. So when you see someone who's genuine, who's like, wow, this person is not just trying to get the paycheck, like they care. That is the one thing. If you give me someone who genuinely cares about people, and I can make them coach. Coaches create community. Like, that's what creates your culture.
By thoughtfully selecting his coaching staff and then investing in their professional development, Jesse creates community within his workforce, and, as he says, the coaches, in turn, create community with members. In episode 38 of Seeking Context, Jeff Mann and his business partner, Brian Gosar, describe the fascinating world of running a tattoo parlor called Vishnu Bunny in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In this moment of light, Jeff explains how he mentors newcomers to the industry, and Brian explains how he supports them in his own way.
I always encourage people to seek an apprenticeship. It's difficult to learn on your own. There's a lot of moving parts. Plus, you have the worries about learning cross-contamination prevention, bloodborne pathogens, just the medical side of what you do. As far as seeking an apprenticeship, I always encourage people, go get tattoos. If you want to be in this industry, you're going to wind up with some tattoos, most likely.
Right.
And meet people, meet artists, and find a shop, find a human that you connect with, and seek an apprenticeship that way.
So I came here with one tattoo on my leg, which has since been covered up by this wonderful man. But I now have gobs of tattoos. I'm a scratch pad for new people. I'm more than willing to let you put a tattoo on me if you were an apprentice. If I was at your third tattoo, I probably have a half a dozen of them. I have a half a dozen from Jeff here. A new artist comes in, I get one, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
So that's just incredible to me. Brian encourages aspiring tattoo artists to learn on his own skin. He's literally giving his body to serve newcomers in the industry. I mean, to me, that demonstrates a kind of love, and I think it certainly must help build a sense of community at Vishnu Bunny. Next, I'd like to share a moment from episode 33 when we explored the world of barbershop music with the High Plains Barbershop Chorus in Hays, Kansas, and the Tumbleweed Chorus in Colby, Kansas. Toward the end of the episode, Don Urban describes how the group supported his family at a time of loss. As Don Urban observes, music can bring joy, and it can also bring comfort in times of loss. Don's brother Dennis was known for singing throughout his life and sang at many family funerals. When Don's mother passed away, Dennis was unable to sing due to a health complication, so Don's barbershop family stepped in to honor her memory.
And well, I'll put it this way. When my dad died and when my brother died and when my sister died, Dennis sang "I'll Walk with God" each time. And the last time he came back, and I know he took some medicine then because his heart was probably not hurting him or something. He did died. He probably died, maybe 6 months or less after that. But when my mom died, the barbershoppers at Victoria Church, they sang "I'll Walk with God" and some other songs. It was a great service, and the barbershoppers made it great. Wow, it was really something else. So that's when my wife died.
As a member of the Tumbleweed Chorus myself, I can tell you firsthand that the members are in community with one another. Weekly rehearsals are from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m., and many members drive well over an hour to attend. Yet guys are always lingering and socializing at the end of rehearsal. They like making music, but they also care about each other and support each other through life's ups and downs. That is creating community. In episode 45 of Seeking Context, Jeff and Wayne Horlicker of Horlicker Jewelers in Colby, Kansas, shared how they help people celebrate the joyful moments in life. Both Jeff and Wayne are active members of the Colby Rotary Club, supporting their community in multiple ways. At the end of our interview, I asked them what they had to be thankful for and what they would wish for the future.
Well, for me, I'm most thankful for my family and the opportunities that I've had to join my father and keep the business going and be a success at it and raise a family to be good citizens and so forth. So that's the primary thing.
You're a lucky man.
I am. That's right. We had 4 children. We lost one to a tragic accident in 1983, so we still have 3 surviving grandchildren, and now 4 great-grandchildren. So life goes on.
Your life is full.
Yes. I don't know how much time I have left, but maybe 8 more years, and then I turn 100. Maybe not. Maybe 9. That I don't want to stretch it too far. A good friend of ours just turned 100 a few weeks ago, and so she's still active and has a good mind. So I think family and being in a community that is a growing, progressive community that can support a jewelry store, or in our case, 2 jewelry stores, not our stores, but the town, and people know us and know of our reputation, and that's really satisfying to have people know you and trust you and on the side doing business with you too.
It is a pretty good version of the American dream.
Yes, very definitely so.
Jeff?
I wish for the world that we can get along better, that we can learn to solve our differences without going to war or without bullying one another. And I hope that we can grow as a people, both in the United States and across the world, that we can get along better and enjoy one another's differences and celebrate those.
And come and buy things to celebrate with.
There you go.
What a great sentiment and heartfelt wish for building a better world. One person doing his own part to build a better world within his own community is Logan County Sheriff Pat Parsons, who is my guest on episode 48. In our conversation, we discussed how Sheriff Parsons mentors his workforce to be fair, doing his own part to create a culture in which law enforcement helps the community work through differences in a compassionate way.
I think entering law enforcement, and even just a young person in general, I think being fair to everybody is just the golden rule in life. You know, treat others how you want to be treated. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it a lot, but I've seen it a little bit in my career here, but I've seen it in bigger agencies. Maybe I'm not trying to pick on them, but some of the officers, and I have to say younger ones as well, sometimes they treat the people they've arrested, or maybe an inmate or a prisoner, they disrespect them. And I don't do that. I don't promote that. I try to make sure my staff doesn't do that. These people, sometimes they might get pretty nasty with us, but you just have to let it bounce off. Of course we wear our vests, but just you have to be Teflon here. You have to let things bounce off, but be fair. And sometimes it was hard for me because of the small community. I've had to unfortunately arrest some very close friends in my career, and that was a challenge. It was a challenge, but the fact of the matter is, if you don't, you won't be sheriff very long, or you will have problems if you're not the sheriff and you're just in law enforcement. You better be fair. That's probably my biggest promotion, is being fair.
What a great example Sheriff Parsons sets for his staff and the citizens of Logan County. You can tell that he is in law enforcement to serve the community. He works hard to instill strong values in his team and create a culture that generates goodwill within the community. In episode 49 of Seeking Context, I spoke with Bob Kelly, who leads the EMS department for Logan County and also pastors the United Christian Church in Oakley. In this moment of light, Bob shares how his ministry and his work in the medical field complement each other in his life of public service.
You know, I grew up in a preacher's home, and so the church has always been a part of my life from the youngest time. And you know, I've seen how the church has helped so many people, you know, in their lives. I wanted to be a part of that. And so I felt God's calling to do that. When I graduated from high school, I went to Bible college and got a degree in preaching ministry. That's been over 40 years ago. The church is very understanding and supportive of my involvement in the EMS as well, because they know that I've responded to some of their homes as well at times through the years to take someone to a hospital. And so they're supportive in that, and not every job does support that, but mine does, and I'm appreciative of that. It can be difficult. Sunday mornings, I'm never on call.
Another guest on episode 49 was Raylene Keller, who is president of the Logan County Community Foundation. Raylene lost her son Connell to addiction in 2014, and in our conversation, she describes how that devastating loss motivates her to serve the community that she loves.
He died 8.5 years ago. I think what happens is that we don't want death to be in vain, like a purpose. So what people do often is they want to leave a legacy for someone else in their honor. My mother-in-law is in that position now of, you know, having raised her family here, like she wants to honor her husband and leave something. I think my own experience has been rewarding in the light of community. Well, yeah, that death, I'm going to say that again. I guess you don't want it to be in vain, that you actually seek to do good, to listen to people. I speak at the school a couple times about addiction a year. It's very rewarding for me personally because it feels like it's not in vain. I think we give back however we do. It's easy not to. It's like it's easy to be secluded and draw within. But by giving, by sharing it, specifically about addiction, it's such a needed. When I talk at the school, I mean with the kids, we talk about suicide, and how prevalent depression is, all of the things. So what actually gives someone purpose and worth? And so when you have loss, regardless who it is, right? Can it cause us to go deep within and do good, connect? I think that's probably my greatest purpose. Is I love when people can connect on the subjects that are of interest to them and supporting them and their journey.
With today's episode airing on Good Friday, I had planned to close with that moment of light from Raylene, reflecting on the way she seeks to honor the memory of her son by sharing her experience with young people and by serving the community she loves. As a close friend of Raylene's, I can say that I don't know anyone more committed to building community, and I am constantly inspired by the work she does here in Logan County and around the region. Raylene has mentored me through some difficult times, and in the process has challenged me to find meaning and purpose when facing or recovering from a difficult situation. Her counsel to me and others in trying times has been to reflect on whatever loss, grief, or suffering we have experienced, and she'll often ask this question: what does it mean to you that this happened to you? How are you going to learn and grow from whatever problems life presents? And how are you going to respond and behave towards others in the world so that whatever loss or pain you experienced might not be in vain? So that was going to be my closing thought tonight. But I'd like to share just one more moment of light from a live conversation that Leanne Adams and Alicia Noel had just a few days ago. On Monday this week, each shared each other's experience celebrating Passover and Easter, respectively. During their conversation, Alicia shared a prayer that her grandmother would recite every Easter, and I think you'll find Leanne's response kind of magical.
It's number 624. It says, and I will quote it here, and I'm sure Miss Leanne knows this. It says, the Lord, speaking unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, on this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And believe it or not, that was what my grandmother prayed during the Easter meal, was from number 6:23 to 27.
That's so cool. I want to show you something I have. That's called the Birkat Kohanim. Just quote it. And I have that phrase.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yes.
And we say that in our morning blessings, the Birkat Kohanim.
Oh my goodness.
I can chant it for you in Hebrew if you want.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav alecha v'yinecha. Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'yasem lecha shalom.
Wow.
That is so cool.
I thought that was just a beautiful moment when these two amazing women found an unknown connection they shared by having a conversation about what each one of them loved about their own faith, their own family, and their own cultural heritage. And as we close, I'd like to share a final moment of light from a few minutes later in that same interview, when you can see that in just one short conversation, you can make truly meaningful connections with another person. This is how you create community, one conversation and one person at a time.
I have to be close to medical care, just close enough in case something happens. But hey, it's all in God's hands, right?
Hey, well, if you're in need of healing, tell me what's your mother's name?
My mother's name was Erlyn.
Erlyn?
Erlyne.
All right. I'll put you on my prayer. We say something called the Birkat Holim, which is the prayer for healing, and we say the names out loud. And it's like whatever your name is, and then daughter of Erlyn. So I'll put you on my list. So, won't hurt to have the Jews pray. We say all the names, and then everybody says the prayer together.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for that. Yes.
My pleasure.
Yes. And is there anything that I can pray for you about, Sister Leanne?
Let's see. Oh, I'm sure there's so much.
I was going to say that Leanne is a teacher at a school that has a lot of troubled kids.
Yeah. So, I guess pray for my patients.
Okay. Pray for and your students too.
Oh, my students need it so much. Yeah, they're just like locked down in poverty and just.
So that's something else that we have in common. Our love for the Lord, and we were both teachers.
Yeah.
You are my neighbor. I can get so lost in the mission of defending what I think for me to love you like you are my neighbor. My neighbor. Oh, to fear the unfamiliar is the easy way to go. But I believe we are connected more than we might ever know. There's a light that shines on both the rich and poor, looks beyond where we came from and who we voted for, till I can't see a stranger anymore. I see my neighbor. May my heart be an open door to my neighbor. You are my neighbor.
Okay, that's a wrap.